Rule of Rose, also known as the Real Yandere Simulator and John Podesta's preteen pizza party, is a Japanese survival horror game, but instead of embarking on a thoughtful, metaphorical journey of self-reflection like in Silent Hill, or encountering horrific monstrosities as in Resident Evil, Jennifer, the protagonist of Rule of Rose, fetches MacGuffins for a group of smarmy English orphans while occasionally jabbing midgets in the shoulder with a fork. Seriously, you won't see this many children with bags over their heads outside of a Chelsea Clinton look-alike convention. And there are more smug little girls in Rule of Rose than in a typical Donald Trump-themed thread on 4chan. Some claim that Rule of Rose perversely capitalizes on the twisted fantasies of creepy middle-aged men. And to be fair, whom among us hasn't always fantasized of rubbing a maggoty rat on the face of a retard? At one point, the moral outcry against Rule of Rose sounded so loudly that it was banned in England after beloved television personality and prolific underoos sniffer Jimmy Savile sampled the game and claimed it just wasn't as good as the real thing. In terms of writing, Rule of Rose resembles an especially cruel Grimm's fairy tale, or a mostly female version of Lord of the Flies, with a healthy dash of Japanese cliches thrown in to make the plot incomprehensible to anybody that hasn't read all 500 pages of the Rule of Rosepedia. I'm not saying the fans of Rule of Rose are obsessed, but that to enjoy the game, you have to be a bit of a Rule of Rosepedia-phile. Taking place primarily in a dreamscape, the atmosphere of Rule of Rose is especially thick. The eerie airship that comprises the majority of the game's real estate has a logical layout at first, but the further Jennifer delves into it, the more bizarre the layout becomes. The few times you explore areas outside of the ship, they are equally as intricately designed and subtly disturbing. The gingerbread house chapter is especially well done, and it's a shame the rest of the game wasn't as efficiently laid out. Often, you'll wander into a large, visually interesting area, only to find that there is pretty much nothing in it. Each orphaned child in Rule of Rose is memorable and uniquely off-putting. Each chapter forces Jennifer to recall how she had wronged those children at one point, and the more you get to know them, the more you get to learn about Jennifer as well. The kids include a girl who is aware that she is quickly becoming too old to adopt, and her stage has a fitting theme of things going overripe. A later level involves unraveling the tragic past of a young Patton Oswalt and the transgendered abomination he will become someday. The music is especially terrific, combining romantic classical instruments with atmospheric ambience and just the right amount of gratuitous English. Rose has so many interesting elements and themes, it's no wonder that Guillermo del Toro copied his aesthetics when producing the criminally overlooked film The Orphanage. Unfortunately, despite all the great qualities of Rule of Rose, the basic gameplay sucks the dick of a shit. Jennifer runs like she's holding in an undersized tampon using vaginal suction, and this entire review, save for the cutscenes and some combat, was played with the game speed turned up 50% via an emulation hack to make the long play sessions bearable. Jennifer's slow speed generally isn't an issue until you get lost and realize that not only did you spend 10 minutes slowly wandering in the wrong direction, but you'll have to spend another 10 minutes slowly walking back. You'd think that the inclusion of maps would alleviate this problem, but the map interface is incredibly cumbersome and lacking the basic map marking features found in other survival horror games. On the plus side, when playing without a weapon, Jennifer feels herself up after sprinting long distances. Just like me! The majority of Rule of Rose is spent tracking down quest items, which either takes forever because there are so many places to look, or it isn't particularly fun because Jennifer Dogs Brown leads you directly to it. And to be perfectly honest, I get more enjoyment out of watching my real dog follow the scent trails of feral cat turds than slowly trudging behind Brown between dozens of slowly loading areas. A clever scent marking mechanic allows the player to either run directly from plot point to plot point, or go off the path in search of unlockables and health items instead. For some reason, the dreamscapes of Rule of Rose are littered with toys and food that are invisible unless a dog sniffs them, and I suspect the health regeneration system was developed by an especially lonely fat woman, since you have to eat candy and cakes to help Jennifer feel better. While your inventory is limited, any item you drop transports instantly to an easily located container and never disappears. Tons of secret items unlock interesting weapons and costumes that absolutely no one will use, as they are mind-numbingly dull to attain and don't activate until an extremely unlikely second playthrough. Though to be perfectly honest, the unlockable weapons make a second playthrough easier to bear, and each unlockable costume is more erotic than the last. Stocking health items is also largely pointless, as combat is fittingly underwhelming. Like most women, Jennifer is only capable of hurting others on an emotional level, and for a game full of lesbians, I expected firmer fisting than this. Melee weapons follow the typical progression of small stabby things that are eventually traded for longer slappy things that do more damage. The lack of a lock-on function makes landing blows difficult at times, but like a diabetic woman buying groceries, if you go for combos, you're only going to hurt yourself. But if you pause between attacks after landing that initial hit, you can stunlock literally every enemy in the game. Brown's combat AI is pretty bad. While Brown can potentially attack and frighten enemies, he rarely prioritizes the enemy nearest Jennifer, and she's easily overwhelmed by groups as a result. Fortunately, Jennifer can run from almost every single regular enemy, and the game is no less tense for it. All regular enemies are pantsless progeria kids copied from the movies The Gate and The Brood, and if you look closely, you'll notice that these manlets don't even have dicks. No wonder they're such little cunts. Occasionally, these imps will don animal-themed masks corresponding to the current orphan that Jennifer is being punished by. And while these costume changes aren't particularly spooky, the alternate attack patterns and capabilities utilized by these enemies keeps the threat of sustaining an attack fresh at all times. Rule of Rose only has a couple of bosses, and I won't spoil them in this review, though I will mention that while they aren't particularly challenging or scary, bosses in Rule of Rose tend to have a metric fuck ton of health. Overall, Rule of Rose is less of a game and more like an incredible horror movie powered by the suffering of the person playing it. I can only recommend playing it via emulation so you can take advantage of speed hacks, or playing it with a group of friends so the suffering can be divided equally and proportionally reduced as a result. On a side note, while plenty of horned up Japanese children would pay handsomely to be bullied by schoolgirls, I don't get why Jennifer puts up with the aristocrats' shit. Personally, I would beat the orphan offal out of these Oliver Twist wannabes, so I guess when you take their headmasters after school activities into account, these kids take enough poundings as it is. Though I wonder, why do they call him the headmaster?